Hey you guys, welcome back to the channel. As you can see, I did not record an intro for this video, but just like I said last Sunday, we are going to be creating that romper. It's going to be fun, super easy to do. Just follow along and rewind whenever you need be. First thing you need to do is copy your pattern over onto a new sheet of paper. You could use the center front or the center back. It doesn't really matter. And then you are going to make some slash lines using the slash and spread method. Alright, so you are going to make those lines coming from the neckline down to your side seam. This first notch here is the waistline, and then here is the tip of my fingertips. So that's not my hip mark, but it's just to the tips of my fingers. The reason I added that mark there is so that I can pinpoint how deep my pocket needs to be. Now, a basic pocket opening is usually 6 inches, but it really depends on how tall the person is or how wide the person is. But usually, well, for me anyways, it's about 6 inches. So when you make that pocket, which is kind of like a teardrop from the waist seam into that secondary notch, you would close in that pocket so that when you add things into your pocket, they're not falling out since the opening is so wide. But it would look a little something like this. Unfortunately, this design does not have it, which is why I'm using Illustrator to demonstrate how it would look if you were to cut it out with the fabric. Now that that's done, you are ready to cut your lines. Make sure you cut them, leaving like 1/8 of an inch of paper at the neckline so that you are able to pivot and turn that paper without tearing it apart completely. Now you have to be super delicate to do this because it can easily rip, and once it's ripped, it's kind of hard to put it back. Uh, yeah, it's not easy to put it back into place. So leave yourself 1/8 of an inch. You can spread it out wide as far as possible. Rule of thumb is the first slash line that I made to the tip of my fingers, I anchored that with the center front line. So that should be like a perfect 90-degree angle if you're using your L square ruler. So I had to pull out my bird's eye view camera in order for me to record this whole thing because it was just so wide. But it should look a little something like this. And when you are done, you can use your ruler to create your new side seam. Make sure that it surpasses your last line. Like the very last line you did, it should surpass it. Once you are done with your side seam, go ahead and measure the center front neckline and mark off your knee level. From there, you will create your inseam by making a curved line from that knee level marking that we just created. And then you can create your opening for your feet. So measure off the width of where you want the romper to stop, and then from there divide it in half and make sure that the inseam to the side seam is that length. If you plan to make any adjustments to the neckline and the armhole opening, right now would be the best time to do so. But always make sure that when you are measuring how deep you want to make the neckline and the armhole, always make sure that you go in like 1/2 inch that's perpendicular to that line, just so that you don't end up in a point. But once you make those measurements, you are ready to add your seam allowance, cut that pattern out, and lay it on your fabric. After I cut out one of the center front, make sure that the center front is on fold when you're cutting it. I decided to make the center back a little bit lower than the center front. So how I did that was just like we did with the center front. You're going to make that perpendicular line at the front, make sure that it's about an inch, if not a half an inch, and curve that line back into your original neckline. Once you have that little bit, you can cut it out and add your seam allowance beneath that. Be sure to save that piece though, because you can always add it or tape it back into place if you no longer want that back neckline to be as low. Now that you are done cutting out the pattern, if you decide to add binding to that neckline or the armhole opening, then you would have to take those measurements. Now, because I made some adjustments to the center back, I would have to readjust how I measure. But how you're going to do that is walk the measuring tape. You start from where your seam would be, you line it up to that seam, and you simply walk it all the way around to the center front neckline. You will duplicate this measurement because this is only half of it, and do the same for the armhole opening. Make sure you have a little sheet of paper so that you can jot this down. And since I decided to modify it, I will have to tape the little piece that I cut off back onto it so that I can measure the center front line. So just like we did with the center back, we're going to repeat that same process with the center front. Walk that measuring tape, and this time you're going to follow the other line, right? So that you can end up at the center front and have an accurate measurement of what that line will be for your binding. And now I want you to duplicate these lines because right now you only have half of them. So you will duplicate the armhole, the center back, and the center front. You will have two for the armhole, one center back, and one center front. Be sure to add seam allowance into your measurement. So if your seam allowance is a half an inch, then you would be adding an inch onto that binding for the center front, the center back, and your side seam. All right, now it's time to create that binding. Usually when you're creating a binding, you have to cut it on bias so that it has the maximum amount of stretch. But this fabric is super stretchy and I didn't want it to lose its shape over time, and especially when I'm wearing it. So I decided to cut it along the selvage. These strips are 2 inches wide, so that means that the binding itself will be a half an inch. Go ahead and cut out your measurements and you are ready to sew it together. So that is it, folks. We are all done. I hope you like the end results. Definitely post your progress or what you're doing on Instagram so I can see how yours came out. This is a final look on how it did for me. I think I might make a few more of these because they are extremely comfortable. But if you have not subscribed, definitely subscribe to the channel. And I will see you next time.